I don't want to see you go home like this.
Yeah, because it would be because of you.
Look, obviously, I feel like absolute shit.
You should.
Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know, it's me, to girl KylerB, coming at you with a new video. So today we're going to be talking about Love Island Games Season 2, Episode 12. So let's get right into the video. So in today's episode, as we know, the 4 vulnerable guys and 4 vulnerable girls are the vulnerable guys and vulnerable girls are Justine, Garby, Andreina, and Andreina. And the vulnerable guys are Marvin, Josh, Kendall, and Isaiah. So basically, after Johnny kind of like dipped on Andreina, it was a big shock, and especially to Tyreek, when Tyreek basically dipped on Justine. It was also a big, like, 2 double whammies that happened last night. So the girls were basically comforting, you know, Justine and Andreina over that situation because it was just like a slap in the face, especially because, you know, Tyreek and Justine were just coupled up moments before the whole, you know, situation. So kind of crazy, like, okay, you're willing to dip on somebody you don't even know who's in the box, but you're just willing to dip on something like that. And then mind you, Johnny and Andreina were safe. They were safe. They didn't even have to go through that situation. They could have been coupled up together. He didn't even know who was in the box. He didn't even know who was in the box. They were safe, but he decided to risk it because he didn't feel a spark, or you know, I guess he felt like Andreina wasn't as competitive or whatever in the challenges, so he decided to risk it. And then obviously Garby saw him. Obviously he's the most physically fit that looking along the lineup, so she couples up with him. So why later on in the episode Lucinda decides to tell Isaiah what the girls were talking about and the boys, because, you know, Justine was telling the girls, like, you guys need to lock in because the boys are basically running this. The Tyreek, Shawnee, Toby situation, that beige brigade, they're running stuff. Especially, like, look at Sydney's pick. Instead of picking Marvin, the person she came into the villa with, she decides to save Tyreek. She didn't have to save Tyreek, but she did it because Toby and Tyreek are boys. She's in a couple, you know, Toby. That's basically whole alliances. Mind you, the Beige Brigade are running things, and then because 2 more UKers came into the villa, they got that whole side on lock. Whoever's a part of that alliance, that UK side, is gonna win. So basically, she ran her mouth to Isaiah, which is crazy. She's talking about, like, oh, those are her boys, they locked in, you know, so she kind of feels weird. Mind you, this is a game. So I'm like, you gotta understand, like, okay, maybe they're talking about, like, they got done dirty by those same boys that you're loyal to. So I mean, you gotta understand, running and telling Isaiah about it is kind of crazy because, mind you, only you and your couple can win the show. I'm like, why are we like, you know, doing all this, Lucinda, which is crazy work. So while this is happening, you know, Andreina is like finally waking up, like how Johnny did her dirty, which he did her dirty. I feel like if he really wanted to up and leave her at a moment in time, I feel like he should have waited until like a proper recoupling instead of risking her safety. Like, you worked so hard in the last challenge to be safe, just to risk the safety, ruin it for Andreina, and then you left her out to dry while you're safe in a couple of Gabby. Which I mean, I can understand why she's frustrated. Granted, his decision move, which he says is like, he wants to win the game, he wants to further his position in the game, he's thinking about himself. So he's thinking about himself, he's thinking like, okay, I'm trying to win 250, you know, whatever. Granted, but he was still telling the guys, like, oh, he doesn't feel no spark. He did tell her about, like everything's surface level, but like, why even discuss that or even say something like that if you didn't care about her feelings, to up and leave her the first chance you got? And mind you, you did not know who was in the box, so that's like even messed up, because that could have been someone who wasn't Gabby, someone who wasn't physically fit, someone who wasn't a trainer. So you could have risked it for what? Like, are you serious? So I can understand her frustrations. Granted, his decision, you know, if it wasn't at a different time and not that specific time where it jeopardized her safety, like, directly, I feel like it was fine, because granted, Andreina was lacking the competitive aspect. She was like saying like, oh, she just relying on Johnny for the game moves and stuff like that. And I can understand why he went the way he went. But granted, you really directly jeopardized this girl's safety in the game for what? You guys were safe, you guys were coasting. Lucinda could have been easily a part of the lineup to be voted off. So it's crazy work. Garby and Kendall, obviously, you know, they're back together, back on good terms. Everything kind of basically right in the world again for them. But like Kendall definitely giving the side eye too, because dude, what you did last episode is the reason why. I mean, we'll get to that later, but like, you know, questioning Garby was crazy work. And it's just like, yeah, you try to fool the audience, but like you're on high alert. Like any wrong move, you're out of here. You're real out of here. So essentially next morning, you know, Tyreek, he's trying to cozy up to Justine, but Justine's like, yeah, fool me once, shame on you. You know, fool me twice, like, you know, I should have knew better not to trust you. And I gave you that little chance and you just ran and messed it up. Like, I'm here for the money now. Like, I don't really care. So, you know, she went to sleep, but she was just like, yeah, it's kind of over with that. Like, she's not messing with that guy ever. Like, you know, she should have realized, yeah, he was unserious. And that's the reason why she went with Josh the first time.
After last night,
Am I on timeout?
Hell yeah. You're, like, you're funny.
So anyways, you know, he's glad because he got his lick back. That was his whole plan all along, was to embarrass her, make her feel bad. And he got his wish. He made her feel bad, he embarrassed her. So now you're trying to be like, oh, you were even, let's kind of like go back to square one, start like, you know, being a couple together. But it's just like, no. So he makes her breakfast and everything, but it's just like, yeah, we're cool, we're cordial, but business as usual. Now Johnny decides to make Andreina breakfast, and Andreina's just like, no, I'm not gonna eat it. Like, she pulled a Garby, doesn't eat the breakfast. She decides to put on a skimpy bikini and then come downstairs and make herself pancakes.
It's a nice bikini, be real.
Thank you.
Jenna, what are you making?
Making pancakes.
Pancake.
And, you know, she later talks to Johnny, like, to him, he pulls up her chat, have the one-on-one, because everybody, like, noticing that she's wearing, like, skimpy bikini, whatever. Talks to Johnny, she's telling Johnny straight to his face, like, you're a bad person. Because granted, the man put her in jeopardy. She was safe. She tells Johnny, like, you messed it up for Tyreek, you messed it up for Marvin. Mind you, if Sydney didn't save Tyreek, Tyreek would have been in one of the bottom couples. One of the bottom boys. Granted, you know, Marvin and Tyreek were two of the guys that Gabby could have chose from, but you, like, if Sydney didn't save him, he would have been toast. So mind you, you know, basically with that whole aspect is because now Marvin, who could have been in a new couple of Gabby, is now at vulnerable risk. And mind you, with this whole America's Vote situation, when you have people from France, Belgium, all across the country that's not America, UK, and it's only American voters, like, those other countries are not really gonna vote for, you know, the non-Americans. No shade. So it's kind of like really they're really at a disadvantage. That's why Celine, they got voted out with the quickness, because who's gonna vote them over, you know, Andreina and Isaiah and things like that. Like, and you're from France, Belgium, this, that, and third, you're not gonna get the most American votes. It's gonna be very, very hard, unless you're like really most hated, but it's gonna be very hard. So this whole voting situation is kind of messed up for season 2, because season 1 didn't have that. It was solely based on competition wins, you know, strategic moves amongst the contestants, not amongst, you know, and, you know, things with America. But anyhow, moving on, you know, she tells him that he messed it up for Marvin, Tyreek, and herself, because he really did, and he doesn't see himself that way. So later on, once again, there's a text message about who's in the bottom. So we find out the 2 bottom girls and 2 bottom guys are Garby and Andreina, and Kendall and Marvin. So basically, yeah. So obviously Garby's from Belgium, Marvin, France. And then obviously Kendall, what he did, he deserved to be in that bottom spot. Like, no shade, no tea, he deserved that. And then Andreina, I mean, granted, she really wasn't doing her best. She was really relying on Johnny the most of the time. So the only votes that she's gonna get is the sympathy votes. But that means Justine and Andrea are safe, Isaiah and Josh are safe. So Ariana comes into the villa. There's a duel happening. The duel is basically, you know, flag football essentially. But in this case, you're wearing bells and you're blindfolded. So you basically have to hear the bells and blindfolded. Everybody was like, oh, Andreina has height and like weight on Garby, and obviously Marvin is taller than Kendall. So they're like, oh, basically, you know, it's gonna be raps for them.
Size on Garby, you have strength on Garby. If it's something where you have to push her around, you can win.
But mind you, you know, Garby and Andreina goes first in the duel. Garby, she won 2-0. They had to do best out of 3 out of 5. So it was 5 rounds in total. The first person to get to 3 wins the whole duel and stays in the villa. So Garby wins 2-0. But then it was just like, okay, Andreina, like, she won the next one and then she won the next one. So it was 2-2. It was tied up. And Garby had to win 1 more. The last round was so close that they had to do like a photo finish, like to see like who pulled their flag first.
Go for it.
Here we go, come on, Andreina, let's go!
Damn!
Let's go!
Garby wins round 2.
Let's go!
Come on. One more.
And Garby won, and I was like, thank the Lord, my sister Christ won, because I really wanted Garby to stay. I voted for her to stay, and obviously Andrea has shooters out here. I think Andrea, this is her redemption season. Like season 6 of USA wasn't her season, but I guess this season, this is her redemption arc, and she's, you know, killing it. Garby gets to stay another, you know, day in the villa, and I'm glad. But obviously now her and Kendall are on luck. You know, she was rooting for Kendall was rooting for her. Now she's gonna be rooting for Kendall in this round. So Garby wins, she's in the villa, and Andreina is going home. So it's sad because it's like, it's directly because Johnny took her from being safe to now being vulnerable, and now she's sent home because she lost the duel.
It's just like kinda ironic that you're giving me this talk.
Why is that
because
ironic?
I am here because of you.
Why couldn't you see this as an opportunity to go in here, come back, and potentially be in here with me again? And if it's fuck me when you come back, then it's fuck me.
It's fuck you.
I mean, granted, she did put up a good fight because she didn't get washed. She really didn't get washed. It was basically a half second. If she was a half second quicker than Garby, she could have stayed in the villa. Next, it was Marvin and Kendall. So Kendall wins the first round, Marvin the second round. Then Marvin wins the, you know, the next round, and then Kendall wins the next round. So it's tied up. It's tied up serious. Everybody's like, Kendall locked in. He was no joke, no funny business. He was locked in. Then it went to round 5. Round 5, Kendall won. Garby was so happy. Like, I think Toby at the last round asked, you know, Garby how she feeling. She told Toby, like, don't talk to me right now. She gotta lock in for her man.
How you feeling, Garby?
Don't talk to me right now.
Like, she really was locking in for her man. She was like rooting for him. Like, she was like, you're doing great, sweetie, all that. Like, that is her dude. Like, everybody's like, oh, they locked in for real.
You're doing amazing, sweetie. You're doing amazing. That was a fierce round. You guys were going.
When he wins the duel, he wins. He beats Marvin, which is like, oh, like they really ate that competition up, which is crazy. Wins the competition, she gets into the ring, like obviously cheering him on, kisses him, whatever. And like so happy that like they're both in the villa. Like they were both vulnerable, they both had the duel, and they both won their duel. So I mean, that's really like, you know, poetic at the end of the day. Ends up winning. That means Marvin and Andreina goes home. And that with that being said, they have like little final words. Ariana basically, you know, singles out Johnny, like, you know, how do you feel? Because you really messed it up for Andreina. Andreina was safe in a couple of you, and you decide to not make her safe to couple up with Gabby. And it's just like, how do you feel? He says he feel bad, but he stands on his decision, Then Marvin's like, he feels betrayed. He feels betrayed by his friends. And, you know, he feels betrayed by Johnny specifically, because if Johnny hadn't coupled up with Gabby, him and Tyreek could have been coupled up with Gabby, You know, they could have been coupled up with Gabby. So that means Marvin was coupled up with Gabby, or Tyreek was coupled up with Gabby. And then that means that Sydney could have saved Marvin or Tyreek, like she just did. So that could have been both of them safe, not one of them vulnerable, you know what I'm saying? Which makes sense, because if you actually think strategically, that's what they're thinking. That's what the UKers are thinking. If Gabby coupled up with Marvin or Tyreek, Sydney, she was crying because she was like, oh, Marvin, you know, she had to make a hard decision and she walked in with Marvin. Marvin would have been saved if she coupled up, if Tyreek and Gabby were coupled up. Marvin would have been saved by Sydney, and that would have been that only 3 guys would have been vulnerable. And, you know, more than likely, you know, it would have been a Kendall and Isaiah, you know, least vote duel situation, essentially. But he messed it up for them. So that means, you know, Marvin had to go home, and, you know, he's like, you know, Johnny's like, oh, I didn't think that, you know, think that far ahead. Hindsight is 2020, hindsight is 2020. But like, dude, you really did mess it up, because if you're really thinking about winning the game, 250K, but you only thought about yourself. I mean, granted, is a game, every man for yourself, really. But, you know, I can't really fault Johnny for making that decision for himself, because he wants to win. Like, he's thinking, like, but I will say how he did Andreina was kind of messed up and dirty, because they were both safe. Like, he doesn't think about Marvin and everything, but granted, his decision did impacted Marvin and Andreina to go home, essentially. And now everybody has to watch their back going into, you know, more competitions or challenges, because like, every man's for themselves in this game for $250,000. So with that being said, Garby and Kendall lived to see another day in the villa, and, you know, Andreina and Marvin get to go home, and, you know, it is what it is. So that was the episode 12. I'm just glad my girl Garby is in the villa. I mean, I guess Kendall is her man, so they're gonna ride it out to the end, or however long they in that villa. But I mean, I hope she wins, to be honest. No shade to the rest of them. Justine, she's on highlight before about Tyreek. She's not really messing with Tyreek at all. It's business as usual, and she's gonna keep it as that. So with that being said, this was episode 12 of Love and Game Season 2. And if you guys like the video, comment down below, let me know your thoughts, comments, concerns. You can subscribe to my channel, subscribe. Anything you guys watching this video, peace.